Hey folks, welcome to Fiddlehead Fiddle Lessons. In this lesson, I'm going to give you 5 big strategies to help you learn note reading.
Wow, exciting.
The ability to help you learn sheet music will help you to play tunes that you love. So that's why you do it. And you may not think you can do it, but I know you can do it. I'm going to help you.
I can do it.
So a lot of fiddlers are intimidated by note reading. It just doesn't seem worth the effort. When they look at sheet music, they see this, and then they freak out. So I get it. A lot of fiddle methods, like the books and stuff, they give you a little bit about reading notes in the beginning, and then they throw you into the deep end of the pool with a bunch of crazy fiddle tunes. So you're expected to magically learn how to read sheet music that way. Well, it actually takes very intentional daily practice, very small steps in order to really learn it and be confident with it. And that's what we're going to basically learn to do today. I created a course called Note-reading for Fiddlers. It's designed to help you read in a very natural, easy to understand way. So right now I'm going to give you the main ideas from the course. Number 1, intuitive note reading. Number 2, learn to read in small chunks. Number 3, look for repeating patterns. Number 4, connect your ear to the notes. Number 5, consistent daily practice. All right, so let's start with intuitive note reading. That's a term I made up for learning to read in a natural way without really thinking too much about the rules at first. Here's the big idea. You learn to read with tunes you've already learned to play. So you just learn to play music without sheet music. You learn with tabs, you learn with audio, you learn with a teacher perhaps, any way possible. And then once you really know a tune, once you can play it for memory and you can almost hear it in your head, which is called audiation, and you can kind of play it easily on the fiddle, then you go and try to look at the sheet music for that in order to read it. So I'm going to kind of walk you through it with a screen video right now. All right, so say we're learning the tune Carry Polka. Here's the lesson page on the Fiddlehead course, and we'll go down to the first quarter. So notice that I have tabs for the song and I have audio to help you learn it. So you really just learn it and be able to play it first is the core idea. And then you look at this little snippet. This is the first quarter of the A part. And once you can play it, you're basically going to play it and then you're going to read it and then you're going to do both at the same time. And then you're just going to repeat this process on this part. And eventually your brain will naturally be able to read. And I haven't even said anything about what the rules are, what key signatures are, what time signatures are. It's just going to start to make sense. There may be questions, but it'll start to make some sense if you take it this way with small parts. So let's go through the process. Say I've already learned how to play this part. All right. And I play it a few times, I loop on it, and then now I look at it, I study it. Okay, I try to notice some patterns. Okay, and now I do both at the same time. I read, I'm looking at it, and I'm playing. Maybe I have to look at my fiddle a little bit too. And then I start the process over. I just play it, and this is an important step because it reconnects me with the music and just the feeling of playing and any technical things I might be going off on. Just play it. Now I just read it again and then do it and then do both at the same time. Read and play. So when I have big wide eye on the video like that, that's indicating that I'm reading, hopefully. Okay, and then you can do it with play along tracks. So notice I have a play along track for this.
2, 3,
and so I can start by just playing. Maybe even my eyes closed. And now just read. And now that's the entire idea in a nutshell. A key part of this is that the sheet music you work with needs to match the audio you're playing with and the tabs you're using and so forth. So you can't, if you've learned to play like Whiskey Before Breakfast somewhere, but you have the sheet music is different, your brain is going to be confused and things aren't going to line up. Does that make sense? So in my course, I have things exactly lined up, and this allows for this intuitive process to happen. The next big idea for learning sheet music, I already touched upon, but it's to learn in small chunks. If you try to read an entire tune right off the bat, it's going to be a struggle, especially if you're a beginner. And this is called micro practice. We're going to learn in little tiny parts, okay? And this applies to everything that you learn, probably in anything that you learn beyond even music instruments. You want to start with little thing and then do the next thing and then put those together into bigger things. So let's stick with Carry Polka as an example. So I'm going to go back to the page and look at these. I broke down the first quarter, which is these two bars. Each box is called a bar. And so this second piece here is just two notes, A1 and open D. And those are the notes of the first two notes of the song. And so basically, you want to constantly find little bits to practice and practice your reading skill with. And again, this applies to learning just the tune in general, but so I can use the same process with just these two notes intervals. So A1. I can play it now. I'll just play. Just read it. Now I'll do both at the same time.
1, 2, 3, fun.
So basically, I use those teeny parts to learn the bigger part, which is the first quarter, and then after learning the first quarter, I'll go to the second quarter. So here we are. And now I have it. This is the second quarter of Carry Polka. It's broken down, and I can learn this part, which is. Then I can study the sheet music and do the same intuitive note reading process. But the key thing here is we're doing it on small little pieces. So the third big idea for reading sheet music is to look for repeating patterns. Look for anything that's repeated. This makes it easier on your brain. If one bar is repeated a few times and you can recognize that, then you do less work as you go. And you may even want to mark up the sheet music to help you with that. So let's go back to Carry Polka. We're going to look at the whole tune now. So I've circled the first bar in the tune. You can see this sheet music. Now, when you start a tune, start to look for where you might see this bar in other places. So I'll give you just a couple seconds looking at it, but it happens 3 more times. All right, and so then the next illustration, I circle all the times you see that happen. And so that means that if you learn that first bar, you already know half of the A part. For one, it gives you a little bit of confidence, and so that's just a good strategy for learning tunes. But it's also will help you to read. If you can kind of scan, it'll help you to make sense of a bigger piece, and so you can do it with bigger chunks as well. So let's go further down. So here's Carry Polka, and the first 2 bars are circled, and which is the first quarter, and the third quarter is also circled. So these are identical. So if you find these identical things, it'll help you to read. There's a few other things that are repeated, a few other quarters that you may want to look at right now and see if you can find them. I'll give you just a second on this video. See if you can find something else that's repeated there. Okay, so I'll go down. I've circled some other things. So the last quarter is the same. The last chord of the A part is the last quarter of the B part. So it's a simple idea, but it will help you with learning any kind of music, classical music too. It'll help you to see and recognize certain parts, and you could use a pencil to sort of make hints for yourself, or even a colored pencil to do what I've done in this illustration. You could kind of use one color for the first, every time one particular phrase or quarter is repeated, you could kind of circle it. So the fourth idea is to connect your ear to the notes on the page. So all the practices we did with playing and reading, you can also do with singing, humming, whistling, and audiation. So audiation is a term which means hearing it in your head. Okay, so I can kind of demonstrate with that same first quarter of Carry Polka. I've already practiced it with reading and playing. Now I can sing it, do 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 do, and then once I've sung it, I can read it, do 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 do, and then I can read and play at the same time, do 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 do. If you don't like singing, you can do the same thing with humming, or whistling. And then audiation needs a little explanation. I have a whole lesson on that. But basically, you know how sometimes you hear a song in your head, you're walking down the street or driving, and you hear a song come up in your head. Basically, we're actively going to do this. You're going to play a part. So let's stick with the Carry Polka example. Close your eyes and see if you can hear that in your head, hear that melody in your head. See if you can imagine yourself playing it. It's a form of mental practice. If you can do that, and again, this is a whole other big practice strategy and concept. But if you can do that, then the next step is see if you can look at the sheet music and hear it in your head as well. And eventually, if you practice all these things, you're going to be able to start to sight read more easily. You've heard that term, sight read. It comes from this connection between what you see and being able to instantly hear it in your mind, your inner ear. So connect your ear to the notes. So the last idea is consistent daily practice. So this, like a lot of the other things I've talked about in this lesson, apply to everything. But let's talk about how it relates to note reading. So if you just do a little bit of note reading every day, you're going to start to become familiar with it. You're going to make friends with those notes. So it's as simple as that. You can mix it up with other things you're doing, so you don't have to don't do it to the point where you're just sick of trying to read these notes. Just do a little bit, then go off and play, do some other challenging thing, or do something easy and fun, but come back to it at least a little bit every day, and it'll soon start to just become a part of you. It'll just start to be very natural. And that's the goal of it, is to be something natural. So I want to close this lesson by just talking a little bit about how all these things that I've talked about today are taught in the Note-reading for Fiddlers course I created. So let's go to a different page on the course. This is a page called Reading Notes on the D String, and basically I break it down into, you just learn 4 notes at a time, and you learn them but with the note names and the fingerings. And the thing I really want to show you, and you could probably do this with other materials you have, fiddle books you have and stuff, but each exercise is repeated. So here's 1A, and there's basically a line of sheet music that you have to try to figure out. Now, if it's your first time doing it or you forget it, then you can go and you're stuck. You can go to the second part, 1B, and it's got tabs for you. So then, and audio. So I can just turn this audio on and just start practicing with it. And looking at the sheet music and starting to do that intuitive note reading process until it starts to make sense, right? And then I could pause on that after a while and go and see if I can read the music without that audio, without those tabs. And then the real test will be to do something different, go play another tune and then come back and see if you can read it. Or to wait till try it again tomorrow and try to read that part without even looking at the tabs or hearing the audio. Does that make sense? So you're kind of constantly testing yourself, and I've set up exercises that do that for you. So here's exercise 3, and there's no tabs, but 3B has got tabs and audio. So, and then the nice thing about the course too is that every tune you learn, you can kind of do all the things I've talked about this process. There's not a way on a lot of the lessons to not see the tabs, but you can still get some of that practice. You can go down and read the entire tune and read. So now I can practice my note reading on Curie Polka. I could look at the full sheet music and just see, can I read the first 2 bars? And just do the practice there and do the kind of threefold practice of just playing, just reading and playing. And I could work my way through the whole tune or eventually do it on the whole tune. So anyway, those are some strategies to help you guys learn to read music. I know you can do it. Don't give up on this if you want to do it. And it's a great thing to be able to do because you can just learn any music eventually, especially fiddle tunes. There's a lot of repetition. It's a very friendly way to learn note reading. So even if you're doing something like classical music, you may want to start with fiddling. So who knows? If you found this video to be helpful, just hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. All right. Thank you for watching. More note reading lessons to come. So stay tuned. In tune and tuned. All right. Bye. Go to fiddlehead.com for a progressive step-by-step course outline, color-coded tabs, play-along tracks, sheet music, and much more.
Thanks for watching the video.
Excellent. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.